Hi, Kevin McDonnell here and welcome to Success Sundays. On this week's episode, I'm really excited because we have a fellow Irishman in the studio who not only has replaced his income from property, but he did it in one deal. So, you gotta love this. Hi, Sean.
Very good to be here.
So, you're Irish.
I am.
I'm Irish.
Indeed.
I came here in 2002. When did you move to the UK?
So I moved to England in 2010.
2010?
Yes, which was just after I went to university and studied for a music degree, and decided that, well, I didn't want to be a school teacher, but what else do you do with a music degree? So I moved to England and became a school teacher.
So you did a music degree to learn to be a teacher, to learn, what else could you have done with a music degree? Nothing.
Well, it's a really great question. When I was young, I was told, work hard in school and go to university and then you get a good job in university. And the only thing I was really interested in was music. And I didn't have a piano teacher, so I taught myself piano up to grade 8 at the university level and got into uni. And it's while I was in uni, towards the end, I started to think about, well, what do I do afterwards?
So you basically went off to uni to get a degree in music without really knowing why?
Without really knowing. It was just because music was a passion of mine and I did enjoy the degree. But when I got to third year of uni, I realised that actually in terms of job opportunities as a musician, unless you're a world-class, top-of-the-line musician, or you want to go around gigging for pittance, the only real thing that you can do is become a school teacher, basically.
Wow. So then you decided to come to England to become a school teacher rather than Ireland, or how did that all come about?
Well, actually, when I was in uni, I realised that as a singer, I became a professional singer, and as a professional singer, if you sing in certain cathedral choirs, English cathedral choirs, they will give you a free house to live in.
Okay.
And so what I was actually thinking when I was leaving uni was, well, how am I going to afford to live anywhere with a music degree? And I realised that if I joined one of those choirs, I would get free accommodation.
Is that what you did then?
And that's what I did. So I moved to Worcester and sang in Worcester Cathedral Choir for a year, and then I moved to St David's and sang in St David's Cathedral Choir for a year, then moved to Gloucester and sang in Gloucester Cathedral Choir for a year. And at some point I realised, I can't keep moving around to these different choirs. I need to, do something a bit more stable. And I thought, well, what else can I do with a music degree but become a school teacher? And I was training the little choristers as well. And I thought, well, while I'm in Gloucester, I'll do a teaching degree, a PGC, a postgraduate certificate in education, and become a school teacher.
What year was that?
That was 2014.
Right, so you had been getting kind of no money down properties through choirs for years.
Yes.
I never knew that before. And then you got your degree in teaching, became a teacher, and then did you have to get your own accommodation then, or what happened?
So when you qualify as a school teacher, a year after, at some point after you get your qualification, you have to do a full year of teaching to keep that qualification. Right. If after 5 years I hadn't done a full year of teaching, I would lose my PGCE. Right. So after Gloucester, I went and became a full-time school teacher in Aylesbury, and then had to I didn't buy my own flat, I rented a flat while I was a school teacher. Right.
And then when did you decide to get into property, and did you buy your own home then after renting it?
I didn't buy my own home until much later than that. But I became a school teacher and was working in a very challenging school, and then moved from that school to a much nicer school down in Exeter. Right. Which also gave me free accommodation as a school teacher. So I realised as a school teacher I could potentially join a school and get free accommodation in the school accommodation. So I already had all this no money down property thinking before I knew
about no money down.
Before I knew about no money down. I didn't really realize that's what I was doing. But then I got that feeling I was enjoying my job as a school teacher for the most part, but then, I started working every single hour of every single day, literally. And because I was working in a choir school as well, I was working Monday to Friday as a school teacher, and then working on Saturday and Sunday in the cathedral with the cathedral chorus.
Right. Working 7 days a week.
So basically working 7 days a week, and working from 7 in the morning till 11 in the evening every day. I realized that, something was going to give, because it was taking over my life a little bit. And I started getting that niggly feeling inside that, like, something's not quite right here. I need to do something different. There's something not right with where I am right now. And I realized unless I did something fairly drastic, I would be stuck in this system of just constantly working for very little pay for a long time, with a teacher pension scheme that was basically not going to exist, because what a lot of teachers don't realize is that the teacher pension scheme, teachers pay into it and they think that money's being saved into a pot for them, but it's going straight back out to the teachers who've already retired, and there's billions and billions of a black hole there. Yeah. And I realized if I stay here doing what I'm doing, I'm in really hot water. Then at one point in December 2021, I listened to the audio version of Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Right.
And you may have heard this a lot of times before, people mentioning this book. I listened to this book and something in my brain just flipped. By that stage, I had got married. I had bought a house with my wife and we were living in our own house, which is really nice. And then something that Robert Kiyosaki said in the book was, is your residential property an asset or a liability? Mm. And then I realized that the thing that was keeping me in my job most of all was my residential property.
Because you had to pay the mortgage.
Had to pay bills, had to pay this. And so I started thinking, is there a way that I can turn my residential property into a cash flowing asset rather than a liability that was sucking me dry and keeping me stuck?
So how do you find progressive?
In the book, Robert Kiyosaki mentioned that he did a no money down course, and that was the thing that changed his life. So I literally typed in no money down course UK, and came across progressive. And that's when I came across your videos with yours.
I would love to say, by the way, that I taught Robert Kiyosaki no money down, but I didn't. I was probably not born when he did his no money down course. However, the updated no money down training in the UK is taught by myself at Progressive Property. So you met me when?
My first progressive event was January 2022.
January 22. So 2.5 years ago.
2.5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you came to that event, heard about various different property techniques. What was your first thoughts when you showed up?
Initially, because I was fairly new to that kind of whole idea, my first thoughts really were, this can't be true. The stuff I was hearing didn't make sense to me. It sounded really good, but I didn't think it would be possible. So I didn't buy into anything immediately. I was very, very kind of skeptical. I had a feeling inside like, oh, there's something here, but my brain was just saying this is so different to what I thought about before that this can't be true. Do
you think it'd be even harder for you to change your thinking when not only did you go through the school system, but you were actually part of the school system?
Yeah, it was really challenging because I was in that school system and I was in this kind of mindset of, education, university job, and this is what I was also teaching pupils. And when I actually sort of sat back and realized what I was doing and realized that actually I wasn't fulfilled, the dream that was promised to me of, going through this process and you get the dream at the end didn't actually exist. And I was actually teaching children to follow that same pathway. I realized that there was a problem there. There was a mismatch. My values were changing. And I realized that there are alternative ways to what this normal system teaches.
And at the start, you had that challenge of, it seems to make sense, but it couldn't be possible. Well, how did you start to come around then to the, oh, wait, this is possible?
Well, there were a couple of things. The first thing was that I had to do something different because I realized if I kept doing the same thing, I'd always just get the same thing I always got. And whilst I did get some nice no money down thinking accommodation with schools, it wasn't actually no money down because it was taking up so much of my time and so much of my life just to get that. Being a school teacher, I implemented what I would tell my pupils to do, which was, just try things, see what works for you, fail, get better, see if there's anything to it. And so I started to implement just a few of the things that you were telling me, that you said at that first progressive event. And I started to realize that some of it was starting to work. I know. It turns out that Kevin McDonnell was right. And, you have this brilliant saying, which is, follow the successful and success follows. And I just was looking at people like you and other people in the progressive community, and one in particular, Blondine, who stood up on stage and talked about her journey. And I just thought, follow the successful and success follows, right? What have these people done? Can I emulate that? Yeah. And that's what I started to do.
Okay, so what have you done since, deals-wise?
So since then, we've done quite a few creative deals.
So before you tell us what you've done deals-wise, in your school career, you came to England 2010, fast forward to 2022, so 12 years after arriving in England. Do you mind sharing what your take-home pay was in your job?
For most of my time as a school teacher, my take-home job was less than 26,000 a year.
So salary,
but I was getting a free
salary 26k, or take-home 26k.
Salary 26k.
Salary 26. So take-home pay $2,000 a month.
Thereabouts, probably actually a little bit less than that.
Okay.
But my most recent school job, I was taking home 49,000 a year.
Okay, so
which is a very decent, very decent teacher salary.
You mean salary or take-home? Salary.
Salary.
So take-home pay on that. 2.5?
2.5, 2,600.
2,600. So from 1,800 to 2,600 a month.
Yeah. And that's a really good teacher salary. A lot of teachers aren't anywhere near that.
Okay. So you started from a standing start in property in January 2022 at your first event. Mm-hmm. Fast forward 2.5 years. How many deals have you done? What have you worked on?
So we've worked on quite a few deals. As I said earlier, one of the things that I wanted to try and do was turn my residential property into some kind of asset. So I started thinking about how I could do this. And so one of the sort of more creative deals that I did was to take on a property just down the road from our house, a lovely, beautiful cottage in Oxfordshire. And we took that on as a corporate let. But we decided to live in it ourselves.
Yeah.
And when we did that, the house is big enough to kind of have, and it has different rooms, so we got a couple of lodgers in there. And the house that we were living in, that we have a residential mortgage on, we got consent to let from the bank and put tenants in there. And so our residential property that we were living in became a cash flowing asset. So the plan worked. But also the property that we moved to is also a cash flowing asset.
Because you rent the rooms out.
Because we rent the rooms out, and we also have another room in that on Airbnb. Yeah. And so we're actually getting paid to live in the house that we're living in. And it's this beautiful Oxfordshire cottage, thatched roof, like the dream house. And it's just really, really great. And, that one deal gave me the flexibility to actually be able to think about leaving my job, because from that one transaction, I ended up making more money per month than I was on my school job as a school teacher. In one deal. That cost me nothing to get into.
So literally, after 12 years of teaching, or of not teaching, but 12 years of coming to the UK, 6 or 7 years of teaching, a few years of the music and in the choirs, you got yourself after 12 years to about 2,600 quid a month. And in that first deal that you took on a corporate lease, moved into it yourself, rented out your own home, you brought in enough income between the income from that house, after all bills, plus the profits from renting your own out, to replace your income.
Yep, and then some.
And then some.
Yep.
Okay.
And it was from the creative techniques that, I learned in your course, and being part of the mastermind as well, that community keeping you supported.
What else have you done?
We've got a few single let buy-to-lets. We've also worked on some flips, one notably in the Isle of Wight, which we've just sold. And that was bought using investor finance, so we didn't put a penny into that. The investor put the money in to buy that property. Another investor put the money in to refurbish that property, and now we're selling it. I realized after that Isle of Wight deal that I should have followed your advice to invest in your own area, because what I hadn't really clocked was, if I want to go and sign a piece of paper with an agent on the Isle of Wight, at the distance, I'm paying more than £100 on a ferry to go over, and I realized pretty quickly that although the deal was fine, the actual location wasn't
Invest local.
Invest local, and you always said that, and it took me a little while to get that, but now I invest at Oxford, and as you know, we've got a few deals.
We have
together in Oxford.
I talk a lot about joint venturing with people, and I say about my knowledge. I have the knowledge in my local area, and I have knowledge nationally. But you're the subject matter expert of your area, and this is really important for you if you're watching this. Is you are the subject matter expert of your area, not some other area. Your area. I might be the subject matter expert of the techniques, but I have funds. You might not have the money. But I don't have the time to go to your area. Didn't have the time to go to his. But you have the time in your area. So I've got clients. Sean needed more income. I needed properties in Oxford for my clients. So we joint venture together on some deals. How many deals do we joint venture on?
So we've joint ventured on 3 so far.
And how much money per month do you make on average from each of those deals?
So I make net about £1,000 a month on each property.
On each property. So you're making more from JVing on deals with me than you were making in your salary?
Absolutely.
In what window of period did it take from doing the first one with me to the third one with me?
So we did the first one, January of this year.
Yeah.
The 26th of January was our first one.
And when did you do the second and third?
15th of March was the second one, and the 15th of May was the third one.
So in 5 months, in 3 properties you don't even own, with me, that I also don't own, you're making your share more money than you were making after 12 years of working.
It's crazy, isn't it? But yes, that's true. Can't believe it. I've never really thought about it like that, but you're absolutely right. It's crazy what, a bit of implementation of these techniques can do. A bit of positive action taking can change your life.
What would you say to anybody who's listening to this thinking, is it possible for them? Can they do property? They don't have the money, etc.
Look, the first deal that I did that got me out of my property and turned my residential property into a cash flowing asset cost me £0. So I'm living in this beautiful house that is worth nearly £1 million, and it didn't cost me anything. There was no barrier of entry apart from my mind.
Now, for people that are watching this and going, what do you mean it didn't cost you anything? And how do you mean? So how did you get in?
Well, what I mean is, the landlady of this property, she had a bad experience with tenants who had trashed the place, and the property had a lot of sentimental value for her for lots of reasons. And she just wanted somebody who she knew, liked and trusted to look after the property for her. And I had already built a relationship with this landlord through networking. And I didn't even know she had this property. And when it came up, she was just telling me this story. In fact, she was telling a friend of hers the story, but I happened to be there while she was telling the friend. And we basically said, well, we might be able to do something here to help you out. And so the deal that we've come up with is basically we do pay her monthly rent.
Yeah.
So it does cost us money to the landlord every month, but we did agree with her that we could put the 2 lodgers in.
Yeah.
And the 2 lodgers' payments completely cover our rental payment. And so she was really happy with that because the previous tenant had stopped paying the rent. But when we said, well, we can take this property on, if we put these 2 lodgers in, they will be covering the total amount of the rent. That means you're guaranteed, and we get to keep an eye on the property. We get to keep an eye on the tenants. And for her, that sounded like a really great deal, and it is for her. And so for us, although we do have to pay the landlord every month, it's not actually coming out of our pockets. It's coming from the tenants. It's coming from the lodgers that are living with us. Yeah. So
for anyone who's thinking, can they do these deals? Can they get started in property? What would you say?
I would say anybody can do this. The only barrier to entry is mindset, is self-belief that you can do it. There are people doing it. There are people doing it all the time. I mean, I speak to, people just in progressive all the time who are doing these amazing deals, and they're using other people's money, or they're using creative techniques to get into properties for nothing. And this is seriously, it changed my life. And I fully believe that it can change the life of anybody who implements it. Anybody who takes the action, and anybody who wants that change for themselves can make it happen. What about for people that say, I'd love to do that, but I don't have any money to buy a house, right? I'd love to do that, but I don't have the time. What would you say to that? Well, it's a matter of priorities. So I had a choice as a school teacher. I was there as a school teacher, working every hour under the sun, building someone else's dream, and enjoying teaching the children, but not enjoying the whole kind of culture around the system and around the admin and all of that kind of thing. So I didn't have time to do properly. I just didn't have time to do it. I had to force myself to find the time because it's a matter of priorities. Am I going to work for another 40 years in a job which I'm lacking less and less every year because of policy changes, etc., and retire broke and probably with a broken spirit as well? Or am I going to make the choice to take some action to build my own dream instead of somebody else's? And that's what I did. So anyone who feels like they don't have time or feels like they don't have money, you can raise money, you can find time if you want it enough.
If anybody wants to follow your journey, keep an eye on what you're up to, how can they follow you, reach out to you?
Well, I'm on Facebook, but I'm also coming to Progressive a lot as well. So if you're up in Peterborough at Progressive Property, you might see me here. And I'm also going to be doing a bit more stuff on social media, which you might see soon.
Excellent. So Sean Fitzpatrick on Facebook.
Yep.
And he plays the odd song on there too if you want to hear his music, which is actually pretty good. So you've been watching Success Sundays. Remember, we are out every single Sunday. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future episodes. He's been Sean Fitzpatrick. I've been Kevin McDonnell. You've been amazing. I'll see you next week.